Real talk. Radio. Let's go. There are times in your life when you're feeling lost and you don't know where you're going. You're feeling down, feeling underground, and you got nothing worth showing. But the Dina Brown's got your cover, sis. She can show you another way. Tune in weekly to your radio, and she'll have it feeling like there's a shift. Hey, yeah. Oh, no, no. The breakthrough is almost here. No, no. Talk to Dr. Dina. Insight. Dina. Advice. Dina. Your life, she knows what she's doing. Dina. Insight. Dina. Advice. Dina. Your life, transform your life. Dina. Insight. Dina. Advice. Dina. Your life, she knows what she's doing. Dina. Insight. Dina. Advice. Dina. Your life, transform your life.
Welcome to Walking Through Glass, the podcast. I am your host, Dr. Dina C. Brown, founder of the Lead Her Shift movement, international best-selling author, speaker, and executive coach, affectionately known to my clients as the Catalyst, because I make shift happen. My purpose in life is to inspire, empower, and transform lives. I wake each morning with the mission to help you lead with confidence, speak with influence, and connect strategically by getting out of your own head so you can lead. And by lead, I mean learn, experience, apply, and develop. Walking Through Glass, the podcast, is not about breaking through the glass ceiling. It's all about the struggle we face on our journey walking through the glass. The fear, the anxiety, the depression, imposter syndrome, limited beliefs, negative self-talk, and other BS, belief systems that get in the way of us living the life that we dream and desire. It's time to make the shift to clarity, confidence, and consistency. And today on the show, I am more than and beyond excited to introduce Rachael Ardanuy. Oh, I hope I'm saying that correctly. I might have, beast a little bit, but as long as you remember Rachael and you know where to send her checks, I think we'll be good. Because Rachael is a Denver-based cannabis business attorney, licensed in Colorado and Florida, as well as a wife, a mother of 2 kids, a 3 and 1 year old, a certified jazzercise instructor, law firm owner, activist, sister, daughter, friend. Okay, guys, she is a rock star, and I'm so excited to have Rachael join us today on the show. Hi, Rachael.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dina. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm so happy to have you. I'm sitting there thinking, my brain was kind of going. I was thinking, I don't have to ask, how are you doing? Are you calm? And this season, I'm thinking, oh, she's a cannabis business attorney. Of course she's calm. And the fact that, especially here, they've ruled that cannabis dispensaries are essential.
We are essential, and lawyers who take care of cannabis dispensaries are essential.
Yes. I was like, we're going to have fun. They're going to have fun today. Now, I know that's a super short bio that definitely doesn't sum up the awesomeness of you. And so what else do you want to tell us or let everybody know about who you are, what you do, and how you serve?
Thank you. Well, that is definitely the punch list. I think probably everyone listening and all of your other guests also have quite a bit of things on their plate and bullet points who define who they are. But just to clear up, a few of the background details, I became an attorney in 2012 back in Florida, where me and my husband are from. And then we decided in 2015 to make a move across the country. And when I moved here to Colorado, we said, well, moving to a new state, I can learn a new area of law. And so in Colorado, they had cannabis legalization here at that time. And so back in Florida, I was doing family law, estate planning, probate guardianship, and a few criminal defense cases. And basically when I moved, I was like, I'll do anything but family law. I'll flip burgers or babysit. I'll figure it out. But I'm sort of done doing the family law bit. That's definitely, I'm not cut out for it, but I know there are certainly amazing professionals out there who that's exactly what they're made to do. And so I've always been, in support of marijuana legalization. I was a member of NORML back in college. And so pretty serendipitously got into this industry, worked for another attorney for a year and a half, and then had my daughter in 2016 and realized I had a new boss who was way more expensive. And so I went off on my own and so had my firm as a complete solo beginning of 2018. And at that time I had like a 2-year-old and didn't know it at the time, but was about to have another baby that November. And so my son came along November 2018. And so just been sort of balancing all of that, the firm, my marriage, my kids, and then I'm a jazzercise instructor, like you mentioned. I've been doing that since also 2012, right around the time I graduated law school. And that definitely has kept me sane through all of it and fit as well. But yeah, just sort of living the day to day. I don't think I'm special, like I said, as compared to probably all of your listeners and past guests.
We're going to stop that right there.
Okay, I'm very special. Let me just back up. I'm a very special woman who, just like all of the other women listening to this podcast, we are just keeping it all going.
Yes, I love that. And I'm sitting here going like, and I know those of you listening are saying, okay, how does she do it all? And and I'm sitting there thinking that, is it the fact that you're a business owner that allows you to be able to create this sense of balance? And again, I can tell that you love jazzercise. I mean, you're not doing jazzercise to put food on the table,
right. Something right. That's a labor of love for sure.
Yeah. It's a labor of love and fitness, and you're still having time like with your family. You've kind of reframed, what you're doing, and you have littles. Right. And that's what we call like anyone under the age of 18. No.
I mean, I would say it's not to say that. I think a few ways of keeping it all going. And like I said, I think those who are in similar situations as me, where we are wearing a number of hats, is that it really is important not to count up all the tasks we have to do, because that is when it gets overwhelming, right? It's like, what are the tasks at hand? And then the other part is, well, how do you keep going? Because you have to, right? We don't have any other choice but to like continue to be moms and business owners and wives and sisters and all of the, instructors and all the things that we do. So I think it's just sort of keeping your eye on the perspective of things is really important for my emotional and well-being, because I get overwhelmed just like the next person, especially when you got so many things going on. So I just think it's really important to kind of not tally up all the things that we have to do at all times, and just sort of parse things out and take things day by day, especially in light of, what the whole world is going through right now and everyone having to have to sort of move and shake. I feel pretty good about this because most of my law firm practice is transactional work. I'm not really going to court. I don't really have to be anywhere in one particular place at any particular time, usually, other than like phone calls and meetings. And that I can pretty much do from anywhere. So, I mean, I feel like I've been preparing for this quarantine type situation for 2 years as a pretty virtual firm. I do have a physical office, but I don't have to be there because I can get most of my work done from wherever I happen to be.
Wow. And I mean, like, there's so many pieces that I even wanted to touch on that I love is that, but the focal point is focusing on, people ask me what's going on. I focus on what I can do, Absolutely. Not always what I have to do and what I can't do. And by that, I'm not saying that I don't have a agenda of things that I know I need to accomplish. Okay.
Right.
I,
I mean, we have to do it, but like, what's
yeah,
the 1, 2, 3? What are the priorities? What?
yeah, I prioritize, but I don't obsess about that. Okay, I know this has to get done, but in my right now, this is the one thing. Let me do that. Okay, then the next one thing that's going to lead to the next one thing. And so that type of structure actually helps, but it's really at the heart of it, like you said, not think about all the tasks because it can get overwhelming when you think of everything. And so I break it down to what's the one thing. Now, what's attached to that one thing that I need to do in this right now moment? That's going to help lead to the next one thing, especially when you start to feel, if you're one of the individuals that feel high anxiety and you don't, you're not in a marijuana legalized state.
Right. What coping mechanisms do you turn to? I hear you.
You don't have any edibles near you or things like that. But I mean, but you have, you have other mechanisms that are there. And like you said, we all have a to-do list. Some of it is physical and tangible, and other is mental. And oftentimes our mental to-do list far exceeds our tangible physical one because we're thinking about everything down the line and everything connected and for perpetuity. And, when my children have children,
Right. And all the silly little things, right? I mean, we talk about, I forget what the term they use, but it's like the invisible load of most women deal with, where it's like, yes, I run a law firm and I have some pretty like high stakes negotiations going on and big picture stuff. We talked about how I'm buying a house right now, like really big things. But then like, we're also thinking about like, oh, did I order enough of this from the grocery store list? And when's the cleaning lady coming? Or did I put the clothes in the dryer? Or I have to pick up the dry cleaning? Like all the stupid little things that sometimes, I've learned as an attorney and a business owner that, we can't do everything ourselves, even though we want to do everything ourselves because we think we're the best at doing everything ourselves. We really can't do it. There's not enough time in the day. And so I have learned like delegation has to be a big part of my practice. And that has really caused, I think, the perspective to be important as well, because it's like, well, maybe I have this massive to-do list, but if I can put everything down and say, what is it that I personally absolutely have to be done by me versus what can I put in my capable staff's hands, that also really helps alleviate that anxiety that comes from looking at all the things on the list. That said, I think it's a fine line between like what you can delegate and what you can't. And I'm constantly struggling with that because again, like we are super badass women who think that we can and should do absolutely everything that comes our way, but that's not the best strategic way of getting to, being a successful business owner, mom, wife, instructor, all the things.
That brings me to a lot of people ask, or it's very popular to say, you can't have it all or you can't have it all. And I tell people you're both correct. And I tell my clients, you can have your all.
Right. I like that.
You can have your all. And if you stop trying to measure all against someone else's situation that you don't even have full visibility of, then that's what's putting you in those situations, again, where you're comparing and you're feeling you're not enough or you can't,
right.
And you're competing against an invisible wall that's still smacking you dead in the face. And so, again, to what your initial point, when I think about tackling what I need to do and will I get it all done? Okay, yes. But now let me define what all means to me today in this right now moment with everything else going on and happening in my life. And so that all is fluid as well. Absolutely. And when I started to reframe my thinking, I thought, oh, okay, again, less stress, more grace,
right,
and actually higher productivity. Because I was able to focus on what I needed to do instead of using all that additional brain space and power on all that I thought needed to be done or how I was trying to make sure that it was on par with what someone else was doing. But this required a lot of inner work for me, and a lot of growth, for me as well. So I love, I love the variety in what you do.
Yeah.
I love
You got to mix it up, I've been in a situation early in my career where you're kind of doing the same sort of cases over and over again. And I realized very rapidly that that was not for me. But, when my career sort of morphed into working with cannabis, and although that seems like a really narrow niche to only work with marijuana businesses in Colorado and Florida, it really, it is to a degree, but when you break it all out, I'm doing so many different things for these companies that I don't feel like I'm doing the same case over and over, because it's business startup, business development, it's compliance, it's business licensing, it's real estate, it's finance, it's contract work, it's employment law, there's so many different areas touch on, and these companies are very much impacted by lots of different areas of law. And so, I'm definitely not a Jill of all trades for everyone. And I am the first to say, that's not my specialty. Let me hook you up with someone where it is your specialty. But I really love that, over the past 5 years of only working in the cannabis industry, that I've been able to sort of build that reputation that I'm the go-to person for those sorts of cases. It's a very small legal community. So, being a professional and also, separating yourself from the client. A lot of lawyers are sort of guilty of meeting their client where they are, and then they wind up looking like a crazy person because the client's a crazy person. This is not subject to cannabis. This is like across the board. It's like it's a scary trap to get stuck in, because we as lawyers are supposed to be above those sort of smaller issues and guide our clients into like, what in reality can we do? What can't we do? What is a good strategy? Obviously with the client making the final decision, but you really are, as an attorney, we're educators to our clients. And especially so in my case, because the marijuana business world is just very different than any other business. And in cannabis, no one that is in the industry has been born in a legalization situation, right?
Right.
That'll be the next generation, right? So everyone who's now currently in cannabis has either pivoted from some other industry, like me. I pivoted from doing other areas of law to just doing this area. Even though it feels like, I'm a veteran now, even though doing it only 5 years, because it's just, that's as long as it's been going on, for not much longer than that. But, we've all sort of pivoted in, and what works in other areas of law and business don't necessarily work in cannabis because of all the strict regulations and such. So, there's a lot of education going on. And I think, maintaining that, that high degree of strategy and education and, meeting the clients where they are, but also guiding them to the right decision-making, having them avoid pitfalls, things of that nature, makes me feel really good about what I'm doing with my firm. I wanted to touch back on a question you asked earlier that I'm sorry I didn't answer, but you were saying about, do I think that having my own company leads to that sort of balance, and that question of having it all thing. And I cannot see a world for myself, at least, as an employee of some other company with as much latitude and flexibility as I have to spend time with my kids and do all the other things I want to do, teach my classes at times that are, relevant to me and work best for me. And so I think business ownership has absolutely been the key to that flexibility. And not only that, but I have made far and away more financially as a business owner than I think it would take me years to get to where I would want to be as an employee. Or, especially in the legal field, I could easily make, a large salary, but trade that away for all my waking hours for the billable hour, grind of large firms that offer those high salaries. So it's a really big trade-off in the legal industry, in terms of making money and then having some time to yourself. And I guess in true millennial fashion, I want to do what I want to do when I want to do it. So got to build my life around that.
I love that. I love that. And that is such a truth, is that there's great financial gain to be had, but there's also so much more mental stability.
Yeah.
And then if you have a family, and by family, some of you just have pets who are your family. I mean, just not having to go pay a dog walker.
Yeah, you want to spend time with your dog if you have a dog. You want to spend time with your people.
Bring your dog to work. You can bring your kids to work. But I think that is so powerful that you make the choices that are relevant and workable for you.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about, oh yeah, because I want to do this. I want to have this. Here's this opportunity. I'm always seeing that there's something that can be done. And this situation, and even what I call the COVID-19 crisis situation, is a wonderful opportunity, instead of always pivoting, to shift. And so the way that I like to explain people when I say, okay, there's a huge difference, and people use the words interchangeably, but they're not. They say, oh, I got to pivot or I have to shift. No, they're different. When you're pivoting and you look at it from a scientific, what a pivot does, or even you're looking at it from, being on a basketball team, you anchor, you hold in place one leg, and you spin around to see who you're going to pass it to before you move.
Yes.
And in that pivoting, in that basketball, because it's much more visible than the little screw of a pivot, but you're still anchored in place, looking around. But in order to make the move, to take the shot, to pursue your dream, to get it done, you actually have to take the step and shift. You have to release the anchor. And so for people who've been holding on to old practices, old systems, things that didn't serve or don't serve them, here's a wonderful opportunity. It's always a wonderful opportunity, but nothing like trauma and tragedy to get you to shift.
Absolutely, because otherwise it's just a really uncomfortable task that you don't want to do. So you're right. I mean, there's nothing like outside forces causing you to have to make the shift.
And that's what I like. And it's great if we could do it on our own. And some of us kind of process differently. So we actually take a look at what our own situation is. And we say, okay, yeah, it's time for me to shift. And other people actually need a much force. Well, you got it. Now what?
Right.
What could you do? And I'll give this example. My son he just turned 18. He just turned 18. And he'll be going off to college soon. I just keep speaking that, yeah, you are going to the college that I know is best for you, that you picked, and then now you're waffling. But no, right. Yeah. So I just say that over and over again. But he and I were talking because he had a part-time job at a location that is now closed because it's, public and blah, blah, blah. So I was telling him, hey, here's a great opportunity for you because these places are hiring. And your school, they now have extended their leave until May 1st. And he's a senior, mind you. So again, they're missing prom, his senior prom, and all those other things. So, but we're not going to focus on what you can do. Let's look at what you can do. And I said, you wanted to have another car. And at first I was going to figure out, okay, let me get it for you. And I said, wait a minute. You're going to sit at home. You can't go to work. You're not going to school. And mom is going to work to get your car. Not getting ready to happen. So I went to him and I said, hey, these people are hiring on the spot because you can go work, labor, you're big, 6'3", 275-pound lineman,
right.
Go work. And so he said to me, and this is fun, he goes, oh, well, I don't even know if I'm interested in that. What? I said, what'd you say? I'm not hearing. And he's like, this car is not working, or he needs another car. And for a moment, I was like, okay, all of these change in my business because as a corporate trainer, as a speaker and events, everything shut down. So everything changes. So I said, oh, okay. I said, well, I'll tell you what, here's what we can do. Until you have a job that's paying you money, I'm not helping you get a car. And as I was thinking about what I was going to do to get you the car, I realized that I was not empowering you to work for your own car. And I said, so here's the option. So needless to say, he went to do his paperwork this morning for the job at the grocery store, who's desperately looking for help.
Right.
So he needed that push to shift into that to do what he needed to do. And I think that for all of us, there comes a point in our life that, like you said earlier, there's tasks that we just don't want to do. And so we're not, unless we have something that makes us, kind of do it. And so I think about my conversation with him and even my own life is that I've been wanting to do more research and more writing. And I never seem to have the time to do it on my terms for what I was passionate about. But now this situation of being home more, which I couldn't do when I was working so much on the road. And so now my travel is lessened. I still work from home, but my time is more of my own.
Right.
And I thought, wow, what a great opportunity to shift into what I'm really called to do, as opposed to what's just paying me.
Yeah, that's great. That's amazing. I mean, I think that is so awesome that you can be that way for yourself. And as a solo business owner, I know that it is a challenge to get to all the goals that we have, right? And so I have utilized in the past, and I'm sure I likely will again in the future, a business coach, because it's the accountability piece. And maybe that'll look like a mastermind group. Maybe it'll look like something else, but I find that is one of the hardest things is that typically entrepreneurs have a ton of ideas. We're always coming up with brilliant ideas. It's just, when are we going to execute them, right?
Absolutely.
And so as many goals as I may have for myself, setting standards, check-in dates with people, and somebody rooting for you really does help cross the finish line of getting those goals, realized. And, maybe this current crisis is, just like it is proving to be for you, an excellent opportunity for people to really look and see what the goals are, what we can do, like you said at the beginning of the show, and really focus on, okay, well, I'm going to give myself, these benchmarks and time periods in which to get these things done, and making them realistic in light of everything going on right now.
Mm-hmm. And those are really, really, really great. And the power of the mastermind is something which is at the core of even like my program and what we do. The fact that I'm a part of one, and the fact that creating ones that really focus on women, women business owners, has been so instrumental. But even with that and having that value add, and like you said, I started to say, what do they need from me? And it's really that push, being the catalyst. And I tell people, everything that I learned about being a great leader, I learned from being Xavier's mom.
Yeah, that's great. It's wild, and for those of my colleagues who don't have kids or can't have kids or whatever the reason why, one thing I like to point out to those women is, listen, being a business owner is the closest thing to being a mom that I can think of, because you don't want to you want to feed your business with good, nourishing, inputs. You want to surround it with the right people. You think about it constantly. It keeps you up at night. You want it to succeed, but it kind of has this separate identity than yourself. And so I think that has shown to my colleagues who, like I said, either can't or don't have kids for one reason or another, that they are moms, because, birthing a business is just as in time intensive. I won't say labor intensive, but it's certainly something that consumes you, and you want to do everything right by it, and you don't want it to fail. And that said, it's still pretty risky to be a business owner if you aren't doing all of those things and making all of those, analyzing all of those things, and making the right risk assessments and things. But I certainly think that being a mom has helped me like I said, I had Hannah before I left the other attorney I was working with and went off on my own. And that definitely made me realize a few things, just generally the lessons you learn as a mom. Number one, the moment you go into that hospital to go birth that baby, you are not in control. You're no longer in the driver's seat. There's other things going on that you just can't control. And that was, as a lawyer, that's really tough pill to swallow. And I wasn't able to swallow that pill, the getting your hands off the wheel and not being 100% in control until I had a kid. And then I realized, okay, well, you know what? There are certain things you can control. There are certain things you can't control. Do your best in the things that you can control, and respond your best in the things that you can't. And so, it's definitely the biggest, the number one lesson in multitasking and juggling and just realizing where the bar really is. I think that really opened my eyes. And I was very fortunate when I had my kids that almost all of my clients have kids themselves. And so everyone was so understanding. And I know, this show isn't about breaking the glass ceiling, but walking through the glass. And I'd have to say that, I'm very fortunate that the way my career trajectory has gone, I know I'm far and away more fortunate than a lot of other women, professional women, because I have not dealt with, sexual biases of, I've never worked with, in an environment where there was an opportunity for a male lawyer to make more money than me or be in a higher position of power over me or anything like that. And I think that, I'm very grateful for that, knowing that a lot of my colleagues have had to overcome a lot of, external forces that have held them back. That said, just like any other entrepreneur is facing, it's always risky having your own business. It's scary when you don't know where it's coming from. And I think, my recipe for success, and I don't know, hopefully someone else may benefit from this, is, I work hard at my reputation and I work hard for my clients. Because I know my number one source of business is referrals from current clients. In fact, I recently have been getting referrals from a guy who I was on the other side of a deal with him. So he's referring me over his lawyers. So, I think like putting your best foot forward, being your most genuine self, knowing what you're best at and knowing when to let people know that is not what you're best at is, I think, just all ingredients of being a very genuine person, whether, however you show up in your business. And I think people really catch on to that and know that they can get a straight answer from you, whether it's going to be the answer they want or not. And, I really think that putting in the hard work, going out and doing speaking and however marketing, makes sense for your company. But then the other half of the equation, and I know this may sound silly, but it's the woo-woo factor, right? It's the believing it's going to happen. And then it's funny because I know the imposter syndrome is something many of us deal with. And so often I catch myself saying like, oh man, I'm just so lucky that this opportunity came up, or like, how serendipitous that this thing happened. And it's like, no, I put the groundwork in months ago for this, and it's just finally coming to fruition. And I believed it was going to happen, and then it did. And so I think that there's got to be a good balance of all of those things, of putting in the hard work and then also believing in yourself. And I think the believing in yourself is where that really comes across to people when you're your true, genuine self. And so easier said than done, right?
Said, I mean, like, again, I couldn't, and I promise guys, like, I didn't like script that. Usually I ask the question and say, okay, what does walking through glass mean to you? You answer. That's which is what I love, which is like, I was like, oh my gosh, and gave specific tips, because you're right. It's not necessarily breaking through the ceiling, because to me, the glass that we've shattered is our very own glass, the ones that we shattered in the kitchen, outside, on our porch, whatever else. Yeah. And so as we're walking through it and moving through it, it's dealing with our own demons.
Right. I think it's so important to look back and look forward too. I've been trying to do a lot of strategic planning for the future and where I see myself going, which is so hard and uncomfortable to do. But I think the first step of doing that is looking back. It's like, okay, what is my 5-year plan going forward going to look like? Well, what have I done the past 5 years? And it blows me away. I mean, every single day I'm like, pinch me, I'm a pot lawyer. Who doesn't have a boss? It really is. It's amazing to see the growth. And that's when I get hung up on, my concern of my progress, or if I think that, when you have those moments where you just think you suck, and it's like, I didn't even, this wasn't even on the radar. It's not even that I thought about it and didn't think I could do it. It's that we are currently in places now that our 5-year ago self did not even know that this is something that they could achieve. And so I think it's important. That has really helped me become more comfortable with the feeling that I'm the only one who doesn't know what my 5-year plan is. I remember dealing with my coach about 1.5 years ago and being like, am I the only one who doesn't know what my values and my mission statement is very clearly? And
but that's what this show is about. And why I started, because I kept saying, you're not by yourself. Can we really talk about the conversations that we want to know? Because we go to these meetings and leadership things. I know I speak at them all the time, and everything is kind of up here and it's on the peripheral about what to do and how to get the job, how to hold your power pose and all of that. But it doesn't go and say, okay, honey, it's okay. Let's help you figure out, and that you don't really know, and the fact that there's uncertainty,
right.
And
those things change. They shift and change. Like, you can't just, a mission statement is not carved in marble. It's going to change wherever you are and wherever you see yourself. And, it's just, it's constantly moving. And so that has really been a big realization for me, where it's like, it's okay to not have this path charted 100%, because we may be going to a place in our careers and our lives and all of it that we can't even identify right now.
And you're 100%, 1,000% correct. And in my former life, you talk about career shifting and shifting and pivoting, is that, again, my background was K-12 education, and I was a school principal for nearly 10 years.
Oh, wow. I would not have guessed that based on what you do. You see that?
Right. And up until only 4 years ago, this is new. Because, but here's the thing, is it is at the root of what I do, because I kept saying my goal is to inspire, empower, and transform lives. And I've been doing that for over 20 years. And it wasn't my what stays the same, the how I do it has shifted. And when I decided, again, when I first pivoted and said, okay, what am I going to do next? Where am I going to go next? And it's interesting, that the millennial dialogue is that I used to do a lot of work with companies on how to communicate and connect with millennials. And they go, I have a millennial problem. And I say, okay, great, you do. Here, let me show you what the problem is. And I say, here's this mirror. And I go, just go ahead, look in there. And there's a problem. I'm a little bit of a smart ass.
I like that. I like I like that fact.
And so I showed them, I said, it is your preconceived knowledge and understanding. And they go, how do you get them to do the things you get them to do? And I said, I talk to them.
I ask them, yes.
And I open the door. But here's where the super part of that is, when I started in education, and my first students, who were 6th and 7th graders, and now, 20-something years, guess who they are? They're millennials. They're my kids. They've always been my kids.
Great.
And so I still have relationship with them. And so when they're telling me this is what I'm struggling with, that I don't know and have all of these answers, so what do I do? And I say, you don't have to have all those answers, but here's what you can do right now. And I go, oh, okay, I can do that. And so I have been doing that my whole career. So when you encounter that and you see that, and I realize that, who am I speaking to? Who am I talking to? Who am I here to serve? Is not just, of course, not just millennials, because this is real truth for all kinds of people. But when it gets to the root of it, this is practical best practices of what to do. You don't have to have all the answers, but what you do need is to have a start. So a lot of times people know the what, but they go, how? How do I do this right now? How do I do? Oh, okay. Let's explore. And then what about the opportunity for infinite possibility? So I don't put a cap on your imagination or your dream. But what I can support and what I began to support is let's now break that down into structural pieces to say, here's what I can do right now. And be fluid enough and flexible enough that as we're going on this journey, if something actually shifts and changes, that I have my skill set to take to execute the new, as opposed to having to start back from scratch again. I didn't realize that thinking like that was a superpower until people started paying me for it. I thought, so when you talk about, oh, I never thought you would do that, but I think about what I did. I helped create strategic plans for teachers, for students, design curriculum, build dreams, fix your boo-boos, be your psychologist, be your therapist, be your disciplinarian,
Right.
And so I brought my whole self to this space because I knew people were like, well, what happened? Why did you change? And again, like I said, I had certain experience that happened that my purpose and passion didn't line up, with my position anymore. And I thought, there's something different, and there's something different for me, and that this doesn't feel good to me anymore. It wasn't the job; it was the system in which I worked. But I still had the passion for the people and the purpose to serve. And so I had to get clear about what that looked like for me. And like you said, some days I didn't know, because my vision is clear about what I'm doing. I'm called to serve. But like you said, and I know this from gobs of years, when you were talking about that mission statement, every year, my school, I had our team revisit our mission based upon the circumstances, the situation, the people, the players, and the stakeholders that were currently there. So your mission statement is going to be changing and has fluidity, but your vision is what people kind of interchange, and they don't realize that they're different. Yeah. Vision is more of who you are. Your mission is like, what are you going to do right now?
Right. And it's, it's from, it's scary when you first make a shift, and that's why I think there's, guidance is so necessary. But once you've made that shift, like you've done, you've taken your skill set and applied it over here now, and you feel that those are, your values are now more aligned with what you're doing, that I've done the same. And, I'm remembering myself before making that shift and thinking such limiting thoughts, because it is such a scary thing to do. I had the benefit of making a physical cross-country move. And when you make such a physical large shift, then it's a little easier that, when you're making those other shifts. But for those who want to do like you did and shift maybe not move across the country, and maybe you did, but if you're just looking for a shift in going from an employee to being an entrepreneur, or shifting different industries that you're a part of, it can definitely be scary if you've not done it before. But once you have done it before, this is what I think is just the wonderful lesson of all of this, is that nothing feels impossible now, because I've completely recreated who I am, and it's still me inside. And I've used the skills that I had to apply over here. And once you have those don't go away and they don't lose value. You just have to figure out how to make them applicable to what you're now doing. But once you make a big leap like that, you realize that anything's possible.
Well, I'm going to add to your wow factor is not only did I do that, is that for 16 years, I lived abroad overseas.
Wow.
And so when I made the shift, I left South Korea in 2016, came back to California, where I was born and raised, but hadn't lived in 20 years. So not only did a professional shift, environmental, and just for bonus purposes, got a divorce.
You shifted it all. You were like, I'm not going to shift one area of my life. I'm shifting everything.
Everything. And in all honesty and full transparency, is that I didn't realize it until months later when the reality set in, kind of like you said, like, what, who am I, what am I doing? Is that I went through what I call a transitional depression. because I was like, okay, who am I outside of K-12? Who is Dr. Brown outside of that? Because PhD doctors don't always translate the same outside of academia.
Mm-hmm.
Go into more of a corporate space, or like I said, in a coaching space and whatever. Now, my background was business before I decided to shift into, education early on in my career. And so how do I marry the two? How do I, people are like, well, gosh, how can you come in and help me XYZ? And I said, well, I'm an operations strategist. Do you understand that? I've done that for 20 years. That's what educators do and school principals do constantly. You're all of those things. And I said, and now when I see and I think outside the box and all those other pieces to me, but what you said just resonates to me the most is that how do you get to that space? And when you're in that space of going, okay, I got to get comfortable with the fact that I don't have and know all the answers, because what I'm doing, there's really no precedent for it, that I am actually the trailblazer.
Yes. My whole industry is that. So yes.
Yeah. Like I said, it really is. I mean, and
there's nothing wrong with that, right? I mean, so many of those people that we look at in corporate America as success stories were building the plane as they were flying it, just like all of us are. It just depends on how big your scale is. So I think the fear is that no one knows what I'm going through. I'm facing all these giant challenges, and it's the crazy thing about it is that your community, your neighbors, your colleagues are likely all going through the same thing, but just coping in different ways and sharing it in different ways.
So that's why I said I love that concept of walking through the glass. And I didn't share this earlier in the conversation because we got into such really good, so good. Of course, I said, I'm going to have to even restructure the time. Like each time the conversations are so great that I'm always going over time. But it's like, okay, but this is real good stuff. But the piece about the why it's named Walking Through Glass, and what that actually symbolizes, what it symbolized for me. What it symbolizes for you is what it symbolizes for you. And I encourage you as a listener to think about what does that look like and, in shattering that. And as I've been asking this question across different discussions and conscious conversations, I've gotten some amazing pieces. But for me, the work that I do and have done as an executive coach and a strategist is that I'm working with some amazing people, women and teams, and they're standing on the front lines being the biggest badass rock star you can imagine. But our sessions following is dealing with their fears, their anxieties. Am I enough? Imposter syndrome. And am I still a good mom? I miss my child.
Right.
How do I still be there for everybody and be there for myself? And we were spending a lot of time navigating that. And so for me, and how do I still, and even if I want to change, I want to do something new. And I said, okay, you're now in the C-suite, you have the corner office, you have the title, you may even have the company, but how are you navigating everything that comes with it in the space? And so if I said, tell me how to do the task, right? You're great. But then all of that emotional, psychological, and subconscious, residue that I'm dealing with, questioning myself, is what I do. I said, after I finish Walking Through Glass, the guidebook, which will be out later this year, my next book that I've started working on is called Shut Up, Heffa. Because that inner critic, right?
Oh yeah. It's the worst. It's the worst.
Will start talking to you. And I think that when I started to do the work and transfer my skills, and I think about what I loved about what I always have done as an educator is to teach in this space and to really make sure that I'm that beacon of hope and light. It might sound corny, but it's my truth, is that it was, how do you do this? What diva hacks? What are the strategies can I give you? And I mean, practical, actionable items that you could actually do. And I realized that that's the work that I wanted to focus on. I want to deal with the woman first and all those secondary roles later, because in doing the work as the woman, what it does is it positions you to truly be a badass in all the other areas.
Right. And those things tend to fall into place once you can work it out.
Once you can work it out and know that you give yourself grace when necessary, and you use gratitude as an instrument to help you move the needle forward to do that. And so that's part of what Walking Through Glass, the podcast, is here for, is to provide. That's what I said, our stories are, there's magic in our stories. There's transformation in our stories. To say, I'm not alone. Because am I the only, like you said, am I the only one that doesn't know? No, you're not.
No, we're all just figuring it out.
We're all just figuring it out. But guess how powerful it is when we begin to share that? And guess how liberating and freeing it is to know that. And it allows me to give myself grace, because when I am operating from a fear frequency, everything is blocked. I can't even think.
Right. So true. It
paralyzes you. It paralyzes you. So that's what has been such an amazing, this has been such an amazing conscious conversation. There's so many like nuggets in there that I can't wait to even listen back myself. And there's so much richness to it, and quite a few tweetables, and definitely some things to make you chuckle and smile. But at the end of the day, to let you know that you're not by yourself in this. And on this journey, you're definitely not alone. And so that's what I love. And before we kind of wrap up and close, and thank you all for listening and staying tuned. And that I know if I would have stopped at 30 minutes, you would have missed all this yumminess. So thank you for staying with us. And I know that you got something that you could use. But I want to ask Rachael before we check off, what would be like that final takeaway of the best advice you can give our listeners to be able to make the shift or to move right now?
Well, I think my answer would be different if we had this podcast a month or two ago before the crisis that we're facing right now. But I think because we're in the middle of it, I think it's a necessary component of my answer, which is not one human being is not going to be affected by what's going on. And so that has really made me realize that it is a level playing field. Back when I did litigation in Florida, whenever I would get really nervous before going to court, my mentor would say, "Stomp your foot before you go into that courtroom," and or just little things to think about, like, that judge lives in our neighborhood. They're no different than you or me. We're all human beings, and we all, there has to be a level playing field, and you have to get that sort of mindset going before you can make that shift, because otherwise, we are always saddled with that heifer, right? Who wants to just tell you that you don't have what it takes. And so I think getting your mindset right to realize that you are no worse off or better off than anyone as it relates to the decisions you have before you. And that there's no time like the present, especially in light of things that are going on in the world that everyone is facing, to, put your best effort and your most positive self forward to realize those things. And that if in the event you fall short of your goals, that is not a failure, and that it is just yet another step along the way of getting there, getting to where you find yourself needing to be or should be. So I think really getting your mindset right and realizing that, they called on you because of your amazing qualities and what you bring to the table. And it's not just serendipity in your life. You've put in the hard work, you believed in yourself, and then you made it happen. I think that is one of the most powerful things you can do to set the change in motion.
Ooh, that is so good.
Did I get it right?
Oh my gosh, it's so good. It's like beyond, because there's so much goodness here. And then I said, okay, my ones that tend to go long, I said, I'm going to make those my special reports.
There we go.
It's so much great stuff. And like I said, it's that these are the types of conversations that I hope you're having. And if you're not, then definitely tune in, to Walking Through Glass. And if you have certain topics that you would love to see, or maybe better yet, you want to have a conscious conversation, definitely let me know. But more importantly, for everybody listening, I definitely want to say thank you, thank you, thank you for listening to Walking Through Glass, the podcast. And my final thought is the final thought that for me, every time I say it, every time I share it, I get another takeaway from it. And so you can find your own, starting thought, final thought, but this is mine for you and for me, is know that you have the power and the authority to transform your situation. So get clear about what you really want, which will lead to you being confident about who you are called to be and allow you to stay consistent on how you are called to serve. And every time I think about that, I realize that this isn't a life sentence. It's a seasonal declaration. And so that there is some change to that. And in light of everything that we talked about on the show today, you can see that you're always evolving and shifting over time, to do that. And just know that you are definitely not alone. So until next time on Walking Through Glass, the podcast, I am going to sign off. And Rachael was I appreciate everything that she shared with us. And you will find how to connect with Rachael in the comments and everything like that. But before I definitely clicked off, I wanted to make sure, did we check? Because like I said, I got so caught up in the conversation. I'm thinking, wait a minute, how do we find more and get more awesomeness from Rachael? All right, Rachael, how do we connect
Where
with
do you find me? Well, you can find me in Jazzercise class. If you want an hour of my undivided attention. Otherwise, my law firm is rzalegal.com. You can get my links to my Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram on there. And you can find me in Colorado and Florida. Helping all this cannabis industry move forward in a responsible, sensible manner, and probably with a 3 and a 1-year-old in tow.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Oh my gosh. So amazing. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for being such a phenomenal guest and also for what you do and such the rock star. Playing music that we all can actually enjoy. So thank you again. And until next time, guys, this has been Walking Through Glass, the podcast, and we'll catch you later. Bye-bye. I don't know why the ending.